Good hustle, soldier.
Sorry, sir. I was still in attack mode. You know how testosterone is.
As a bubbling crockpot of male hormones, I sure do. What's your name, Private?
La Man. Lemon. Lemon, sir.
Lemon, you're a man's man. You're a man's man. More importantly, your hand, while firm and masculine, is soft as a velvet child. What lotion? Private Lee Lemon may well be the finest recruit I've seen in all my years of service. That young man fills me with hope, and some other emotions that are weird and deeply confusing.
As anything that's been written, that's been consigned to the paper. Okay, so you buy an air fryer and you get a brochure with instructions on how to use it.
Right, because technically that would be literature in itself. Because
yeah,
and that's also too because I remember way back in the day when people would refer to any writing, they would say, "Well, what is what does the literature say?" Or I'm passing the literature around. It's not. I mean, it's not exactly the Brothers Karamazov that they're passing around. It's just simple instructions on how you like you would say, like how to operate an air fryer, or a manual on what are the expectations of the job, or safety protocols for how to handle the JCB.
Yeah, which are probably quite long.
You're right.
I hope.
I mean, every time I started a new job, I've always had to have I've had to go through 10 pages of stuff about these are the expectations, these are the ethics, these are what you can and can't do. This is the dress code, all that sort of stuff. So all that will kind of fall in that category too. Yeah.
So is a Shakespeare play any more literature than the instruction manual for an air fryer?
Right. If we're being very liberal in that understanding, but I mean, with something like Shakespeare, I mean, we've been conditioned to see Shakespeare as something that's very different from, say, something from like instructions for an air fryer, or even something as different as the Aeneid, right? Because Virgil's Aeneid, will definitely be read differently than Twelfth Night, for instance, or even a modern novel like the Da Vinci Code will be read very differently, or in some cases held to a higher standard than Hamlet, for example.
Well, yes, I mean, and it all comes down to how do you define literature?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if okay, let's get rid of the air fryer for the moment.
Right.
But we can even go to some of the lowest forms of literature.
Mm-hmm.
How many ever it was shades of grey?
Right.
50, I think.
or Twilight for my generation,
Yeah. And now they're literature. They're not perhaps very good literature.
It's creative literature, I guess, if we want to.
But it's more to the point. More to the point for me is it was consigned to the paper with the intention of somebody sitting down, presumably, and reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Wearing their slippers, smoking a pipe with a glass of wine in front of a fire, or on a train, or on an airplane. Okay, the intention behind writing it was for someone to read it. Whereas when it comes to dramatic art, the intention behind writing it is not for it to be read. It is for it to be performed.
Right.
And spoken. And so, and that goes to my mind, all dramatic, what is called literature, from Arthur Miller to Peter Shaffer to
Tennessee
Noel
Williams.
Coward. going back through history to Shakespeare and indeed beyond, if we're looking backwards. So going back to your original question, is Olivia so stupid that she can't see through the disguise?
Mm-hmm.
That is an entirely subjective question, which only you can answer for yourself.
Right. Because if I pose the question to you, you may not answer necessarily in the same way that I would expect it to be answered.
Well, I've seen several performances of Twelfth Night.
Mm.
There was one where it was interesting. It was very subtle, and it wasn't overstated. But for both Olivia, and the Duke, Orsino, they found themselves attracted to this incredibly androgynous creature, and you could see them subtly, but very subtly. But it was interesting to watch. Wondering about their own sexuality. Yeah, Orsino was starting to get incredibly attracted to this boy, presumably. And he was starting to question himself because of his attraction for the boy.
Right.
And Olivia was getting attracted to this androgynous person who seemed more female than male. And she was, and she too was starting to question her own sexuality. And so when she finally meets Sebastian,
right,
who looks exactly the same but is obviously male, there is a sort of huge on Olivia's part. So this all comes together at the end,
right,
in this production, because there's a huge relief on both the part of Orsino and Olivia when they discover that this attraction that they had for this androgynous creature was not homosexual.
So yeah, so much to Orsino's relief, I might add.
Yeah, and Olivia's. Yeah.
Well, hold on, because Olivia is attracted to Cesario, so presumably it wouldn't be as awkward for her because of the fact that she, for all she knows, she sees, yes, he's very androgynous looking, but someone who passes off as male, right? So why would that? So with Orsino's case, I can sort of understand where he's coming from. He's sort of asking, well, I'm having these feelings for this young boy who I just hired. I mean, do I act on it, or do I just like keep it down, or what?
Well, because with the best will in the world, can a youngish woman really pass herself off as a boy? Yeah. Or if Eve, and obviously, I mean, she's dressed as a boy. She tries perhaps to move like a boy, but I'm also remembering that Olivia is quite a bit older, and so has quite a lot of life experience.
Right.
She's going to clock, or in this particular production, clock that there's something incredibly effeminate about this boy, and yet she's attracted to him.
That brings us to the whole beginning of the play, because Orsino, wants Cesario to act as like a messenger to kind of tell Olivia, hey, my master, he really fancies you. He feels this way about you. Can you, will you give him a shot? And Olivia just basically shoots down Orsino. So with Olivia having these feelings for Cesario, turning the affections that Orsino would like to have for himself kind of get directed to his page instead. I mean, does she feel this way because she can sort of identify a kindred spirit, or there's like a sort of connection?
Well, she does have a speech. Where are we?
Let me know which act it is, because
it'll be after her their first meeting.
Okay.
Which will be Act 2, Scene 3.
This is when Malvolio talks about the ring, right?
No, it's before. Well, it's before.
Okay. Act 2, Scene 3. Okay.
No, it's not Act 2, Scene 3, because that's Belch and Toby Belch and Co. Okay, Act 2, Scene 4. Is back in Orsino's house. And Viola's already hooked. So
are you sure it's not Act 2, Scene 2?
I'm not.
Okay.
Hang on, going back. Previous scene, Act 2, Scene 3. Because she does actually say something about. Oh, come on!
But while you're looking for it, what I'm thinking here is the fact that to your point, because you said Olivia's. To your point, because sorry. So you said that that Olivia is a woman of the world. She's she's seen and done it all. She has life experience. So presumably, when she sees Orsino, she's probably thinking to herself, "Well, he's just like every other man I've dealt with." What makes him different from he's a duke, but what makes him different from this? So like when she sees Viola as Cesario, she's thinking there's something about this guy who's very different. He's not like all the other men I've dealt with. I do want to learn more about him, because he's not running in the same crowd as Orsino or Sir Toby or anybody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see her femininity or effeminate. Okay, so we've got it's actually much earlier than I thought.
So it's in the first act then?
Act 1, Scene 5, which is Olivia and Viola's first meeting.
Okay. Oddly enough, I was actually bookmarking that page here. So, so the honorable lady of the house, which is she, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I would imagine even dressed as a boy, bits of femininity or that effeminate nature will still peek out, Right. So, but I mean, enough for Olivia to recognize, but not enough for her to, clock, Cesario and say, "Oh, you're definitely, a chick in male clothes,"
Well, there's also the voice. Yeah,
that's true. True.
Although I was watching something on YouTube the other day about with American politicians, and I wasn't watching. I was just listening, and there was some Republican politician, and then I looked at the screen. And I thought, it's a man.
Wait, was this SNL?
No, it wasn't. It was, it was some report. I mean,
Okay.
and this guy was making a speech, and I was not watching the screen. I was actually tending to my wood fire, and I thought, what a load of fucking bullshit this is. Who is this bitch? And came back and found that it was actually a guy with this incredibly high voice. He was speaking like this, and
are you talking about Lindsey Graham? I mean, we know about that. we just move on and past that.
Anyway, going back to when Viola meets Olivia, it's a really interesting scene.
Yeah. It kind of had me on the edge of my seat because I'm sitting there just wondering, like, at any point, like, does she say something that kind of lets her know, oh yeah, all right, I know what's going on here, but I'm going to play along because I like to have a good time here.
Well,
anything goes in Illyria, so.
I mean, because she has sworn off men anyway. I mean, it's not just Orsino that she's rejecting. She's rejecting
character, isn't there?
Since the death of her brother, she has sworn off all men.
Right, because she's in mourning. So I think she said for 7 years. Is that right? Okay,
something like that. I can't remember the exact. Okay. Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I've got it pulled up here. Act 1, Scene 5.
Yeah.
Enter Viola in attendance.
Yeah. The honourable lady of the house, who is she? Speak to me, I shall answer for her your will. Most radiant and exquisite and unmatchable beauty. I mean, it's obviously some sort of whence came you, sir? And are you a comedian?
Because she's very cynical at first. I mean, that's why she's asking, "Are you a comedian?" Like, she's just sitting there, like, "All right, I know what's going on here. Yeah, yada yada yada." So,
and then round about line 490, according to my copy, I'm on the open source Shakespeare.
Okay.
Olivia says it is more like to be feigned. I heard you were saucy at my gates and allowed your approach, rather to wonder at you than to hear you. If you be not mad, be gone. If you have reason, be brief. 'Tis not that time of moon with me to make one in so skipping a dialogue. And then going on a bit to 510, she turns 180, and she says, "Give us the place alone. We will hear this divinity." Okay. So, and then there's that bit of tennis, where she is They're both playing with each other, in fact.
Right. Yeah, and you kind of get
Yeah.
that sense here too. You know, they're
Yeah.
they're on their toes, as it were.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the whole point, for Viola being there is just basically saying, "Hey, I've got a message for Orsino," and Olivia, as I said earlier, Olivia, at first she's a bit cynical, but she begins to catch on. So, so it's that point where I'm wondering, like, is she getting ready to find out about Viola, or is she kind of just, falling
Well,
for what she sees before her,
okay. Well, again, round about line 520, 519, Viola says, "Good madam, let me see your face." Have you any commission from your lord to negotiate with my face? You are now out of your text, but we will draw the curtain and show you the picture. Look you, sir, such a one as I was present. It's not well done. And then Viola comes up with a line that only a woman could ever come up with.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't catch that.
Excellently done if God did all.
Now, why would that be a womanly thing to say? Because couldn't a man easily say something like
that? He might think it, but he would never say it. It's such a bitchy thing to say.
Oh, I can't. Okay, so we want to read it as Viola being a bit catty, then, right?
Yeah. Excellently done if God did all. I mean, it's meow.
It kind of reminds me of that movie, The Substance. It just won an award this Oscar season. It kind of reminds me of that, because you kind of have like this older lady who's trying her hardest to kind of look young, but they kind of create like a clone of her younger self, and her younger self is kind of being a bit more bitchy. So that's what it kind of reminds me of, really.
Yeah.
It's like the younger lady is looking at the older lady, and to your point, just saying, yeah, I guess you look okay,
Well, yes, I mean, the implication is that there's 3 millimeters of makeup.
I would never would have picked up on that. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Although it kind of makes sense, because then Olivia says, "'Tis in grain, sir, 'twill endure wind and weather." So in light of what you said, it's kind of like, yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
But then Viola kind of doubles down too, doesn't she?
Viola.
Yeah, because she says, "'Tis beauty truly blent, whose red and white nature's own sweet and cunning hand laid on. Lady, are the cruelest she alive, if you'll lead these graces to the grave and leave the world no copy." So it kind of, to me, it just sounds like she's kind of doubling down on what she said earlier.
Yeah.
It's like of course you're beautiful. I mean, obviously, if you weren't around, everybody would just wonder how beautiful you are, because there would be nothing of you left in the world. Wow. Yeah, you totally opened my eyes on that one. I would have expected that.
Yeah. And then we get back into the tennis match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see what you are. I see you what you are. You are too proud. But if you were the devil, you are fair. My lord and master loves you. Oh, such love cannot be recompensed. Though you were crowned the nonpareil of beauty, how does he love me? Notice technical stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
That the nonpareil of beauty, how does he love me, are 2 half lines. So Olivia picks up, in order to keep the iambic pentameter, and this is the way Shakespeare works, in order to keep the iambic pentameter, Olivia has to pick up that half line and finish the half line of the nonpareil of beauty, how does he love me, without any pause.
Mm-hmm.
And that increases the the sense of tennis match that is going on here.
Right. It's a sort of, it's a back and forth that goes without any pause, like you said. They're kind of they're kind of picking up on each other's cues and kind of like finishing. It's kind of like how people would say, we're so we're so in love we can finish each other's sentences.
Yeah. Or respond. Or if you're in a tennis match type situation, respond spontaneously. That has to be the how does he love me? Has to have the appearance of spontaneity.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's picking up on that, and she's kind of giving it to her, in equal measure, just as Viola's giving it to her.
Yeah, and that happens again later. Your lord does know my mind. I cannot love him, yet I suppose him virtuous, know him noble, of great estate, of creation. He might have took his answer long ago. And then Viola, given that this is her commission, her job, starts to give eloquence to her mission.
Right. So let me ask you this, because what she says before, it's almost as if she's reading from a script, right?
Yeah, and here I think she's getting more into spontaneity, but
right.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, what she says after that, it's more of her, as we would say, she's going off script, really.
Mm-hmm. Although she's keeping on theme.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how with some TV shows they give you like a theme, but the actors, if they're good actors, that they'll improv but kind of stay within the parameters of what the writer or the director wants them to do.
Yeah. Well, from an actor's point of view, there are two sorts of directors. When it comes to film,
right?
There are those who want every word, DLP as we call it, dead letter perfect, and those who prefer that the actor take what the script writer has given as a template, as I said earlier, anyway, to go back here. If I did love you in my master's flame, with such a suffering and such a deadly life, in your denial I would find no sense, I would not understand it. Why? What would you? And here, and again, we have the broken line. We have the line broken between the two characters.
Right.
So Olivia, now there's another technical thing. In that the last word of any verse line is the most important. So the way Olivia, in my opinion, should deliver that is, why? What would you? And here, and if you stress the you, then we're starting to see Olivia's interest in this androgynous creature before her.
Right, she begins to pick up on it because
it's not a neutral. In my opinion, given the way that I know how Shakespeare structures lines, it's not a little neutral. Why? What would you do? It's why? What would you?
Right, she's directing it. Because at this point she's not really talking to Orsino, through Viola. She's talking to Viola directly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Okay, you're saying what Orsino would do. What about you?
She's really messing with Orsino at this point here.
Yeah. And Viola continues with her obviously highly educated capacity for eloquence.
Mhm.
And then is that my computer making that funny noise? Oh, hang on. Is it
I think what's interesting too is the fact that whenever Olivia's hearing Orsino's words, she's not really she's not really interested. She's very jaded. But then when Viola kind of goes off script for just a little bit, then her ears perk up. But then when she goes back to saying make me a willow cabin at your gate, she's kind of like, oh, okay, go back to the boring bits. Because she can sort of read like who as to who's really talking here, right? Because because like you said, with all the technical stuff, it's pretty much it's pretty much stuff that Olivia would have heard many times, either from Orsino or other suitors, right? Yeah. Whereas with that short, and what I love is the fact that when Viola is like just giving her own take, it's very short, it's very brief and to the point, and you kind of get the sense that Olivia really just appreciates someone who's just very direct, who's not going to just beat around the bush, like what we see with Orsino here, saying, I love you with the power of 1,000 suns or whatever.
Yeah. And then again, I mean, Viola goes into her almost hyperbole. I would make me a willow cabin at your gate and call upon my soul within the house, and with right loyal cantons of contemned love, and sing them loud even in the dead of night. You can see Olivia's eyes rolling into the back of her head.
Exactly. She basically went back on script, and she's like, oh, okay, this again.
Yeah. And that ends with another short line which Olivia picks up on.
Mm-hmm.
But you should pity me. You might do much. What is your... And then, so much is the last word of that verse 9. What is your parentage? And now, look at this. We have a short line which Viola does not pick up on, which indicates a pause. Above my fortunes, yet my state is well. I am a gentleman.
Yeah, because she doesn't respond after that.
Yeah. I mean, so that obviously, again, if I were directing this, I would say to the Viola, that takes you back. That knocks you back for a moment, because what is your parentage? Oh, fuck.
Right. So in other words, that question would have come out of left field. She wouldn't have any way of knowing that was coming. Unlike all the others, where it's like, she says something and Olivia responds.
Yeah.
Olivia kind of just throws that one out, and Viola is now like, okay, this is not on the script. Like, what do I do here?
Yeah. And that's actually very important, because it comes back later.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that too.
Viola picks up on it. Above my fortunes, yet my state is well. Gulp. I am a gentleman. Get you to your lord. I cannot love him, let him say so, let him say no more, unless perchance you come to see me again. Again, last word of the verse line. Again. To tell me how he takes it. Fare you well. I thank you for your pains. Spend this for me. And Viola is not impressed.
Mhm.
I am no feed post, lady. Keep your post. My master, not myself, lacks recompense. Love make his heart a flint that you shall love, and let your favor, like my master's, be placed in contempt. Farewell, fair cruelty.
So let me ask you this, because earlier you said that when Viola says "excellently done," if God did all, that's kind of like a catty move. Would you say would you say that final exchange is kind of like Olivia kind of returning the favor in that cattiness? Where she says where is it? I thank you for your pains. Spend this for me. It's kind of like her kind of pushing back at the cattiness that she got earlier. Or am I overthinking it?
One could play it like that. One could also play it as simply a rich person just thinks that money buys everything. Yeah. Oh shit. Hang on. I would think that would be up to the actress in question.
Gotcha. Yeah. The only reason why I bring that up is because I thought that I thought that would be a kind of nice way to bookend that conversation between the two of them.
Could be. And Viola's reaction is haughty. If and don't forget, of course, Viola is not a servant. I mean, she is, although she's been shipwrecked and found herself on, and this is something which which is something that I think is very often forgotten when people now are studying Shakespeare, is the importance of social class and the 5 social classes which exist, dare I say it, to this day in English society. You have the peasant class or the worker, those who have nothing to sell but their labor. You have the lower middle class, which the French would call the petit bourgeois, which is slightly above the working class, but generally are used to keep the working class in order. If you put it into army terms, you've got the private, the non-commissioned officers, which leads up to sergeant major. And then there's a line, and I'm talking about the English social order. And then above the lower middle class, there's a line. And then you have the middle class, who are educated, maybe homeowners, and certainly they have a career rather than a job.
Right.
The middle class. Then you have the upper middle class, who can move and mix with the aristocracy. They're the landed gentry. They're the people who own land, from which they get a living without actually getting their Wellington boots on, their rubber boots on, and going out and tending to the cows. But they're traditionally getting their living from the land.
Right, they're not having to labor, in the traditional sense.
Yeah, they're the
it's kind of like how investors now they don't actively work. They kind of invest their money so they're earning income passively.
Yeah. But they're landowners, and of course it would be passed down.
Right.
But they don't have. They're not part of the aristocracy. They don't have title, but they do have title deeds.
We're talking about the landed gentry. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then you have the aristocracy, and then of course there's a whole series of hierarchy from the aristocracy,
right, like counts and marquises and dukes,
barons, and until you get up to the royalty,
right.
And so, but one thing that is very important, and I think is very often totally avoided or forgotten or just not taken into account, is how important this social structure is to English society. It's not quite as rigid as the caste system, but a lower middle class will marry a working class, but for a lower middle class to marry a middle class, because I say that's a line, a middle class marrying an upper middle class, the family of the upper middle class might consider that the person in question, their relative, was marrying beneath their station, but it would still be acceptable. But for the middle class to marry the maid would be absolutely scandalous.
Right.
Yeah. For the middle class to marry the the lower middle class, well, in modern times that certainly has become more blurred, but and it's also very much reflected in the accent.
Yeah.
So if you look at this next speech from Olivia, "What is your parentage? Above my fortunes, yet my state is well. I am a gentleman. I'll be sworn thou art. Thy tongue, thy face, thy limbs, actions, and spirit do give thee fivefold blazon." So everything about her and her comportment and her behavior tells Olivia that this is not a working class person,
right,
or even lower middle class.
Right, because in the different class structures, there's a certain expectation of how you should dress, how you should carry yourself physically, and how you talk. It's like how traditionally, like whenever you think of working class people, in England, they always talk with a Cockney accent, and then people who are people who are in the upper strata, they speak the King's English, right? So you could sort of know who's who.
Yeah. Well, it's not just a Cockney accent; it'll be any local accent.
Right. Well, I'm saying I'm saying from an American standpoint. Like, if I heard a Cockney accent, I would think, okay, so he's like, rough and tumble. He's, he's a man of the streets. He doesn't
Yeah.
he doesn't go to school. He he learns by interacting with people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as I say, it does still exist even to this day. I remember I was I was filling up my car on on a French autoroute, and this top of the range Bentley came up. And I expected the chauffeur to get out and start filling it up, but actually it was the guy who was driving it who got out and started filling it up. Okay, yeah. He doesn't have a chauffeur. And then he turned round to to his wife, who was sitting in the car, and said, "Hey, can you pass me my wallet?" And I went, this does not compute. Yeah. Because
you can thank Top Gear for that. So
yeah. Well, I mean, working class people like footballers or whatever, even IT gurus who end up getting a lot of money,
all right,
will not buy a Bentley. They'll buy a Ferrari.
Yeah, something that's really, really flamboyant. Yeah.
Yeah, or
Bugatti.
Or Bugatti or a Maserati, or a Bentley says class. Not just money, class.
Like, so Bentley would sort of advertise, I'm off to I'm off to Buckingham Palace to have tea with the king.
Yeah.
Whereas if you sell Maserati, it's like, okay, well, this is someone who got paid $1 million and is just showing off,
Yeah, bling bling, as they call it. Yeah,
right. And yeah, I mean, it's the same in Hollywood, where where I read a lot about these young musicians, where as soon as they sign their first record deal, I mean, first thing they're doing is they're buying, they're decked out in Gucci, they're like wearing Louis Vuittons, and they're getting like, if they're not getting a fleet, they're getting at least 3 supercars, from like Lamborghini, Ferrari, and Maserati, and just tearing up the place,
Yeah. Whereas Keanu Reeves drives around in a secondhand Golf.
Very, very working class, right there.
Well, I mean, I think he's middle class, but of course, these distinctions don't exist in American or Canadian society.
Yeah, it's not a really North American thing. Yeah,
it's although, well, so anyway, and so I mean, this speech from Olivia is wonderful. I mean, a wonderful opportunity for an actress, because it's like, holy shit. Yeah. What is your parentage? Above my fortunes, yet my state is well. I am a gentleman. I'll be sworn thou art. Thy tongue, thy face, thy limbs, actions, and spirit do give thee 5-fold blazons, not too fast. Soft, soft. Unless the master were the man, how now? Even so quickly may one catch the plague. Methinks I feel this youth's perfection with an invisible and subtle stealth to creep in at mine eyes. Well, let it be. Yeah. And then she starts that whole thing with the ring. She calls Malvolio, and run after that same peevish messenger, the county's man. He left his ring behind him. Would I or not? Tell him I'll none of it. Desire him not to flatter with his lord, nor hold him up. I ask not for him. If that youth will come this way tomorrow, I'll give him reasons for it. Hide thee, Malvolio. And the epilogue to that scene. I know not what, and fear to find mine eye too great a flatterer for my mind. Fate, show thy force. Ourselves we do not owe. What is decreed must be, and be this so. Yeah, she's hooked. Just looking at him stroke her, she's hooked.
So to go back to that line from earlier. So is she relieved that this young man is, from, if not the same class, at least from a respectable class? Was she concerned that he might be, like a mere servant or someone from the lower ranks of society?
Relieved at this stage. I wouldn't say relieved, because she hasn't as yet made any had any thoughts about actually taking this to the next level.
Right.
What she's clocked is that he is, and therefore that makes him acceptable.
Right. So she can pursue him because he's right in her eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. And that's all down to the way he speaks, to his accent.
Right, because because as he's talking, she's picking up on that. It's not like something that just she randomly asks.
Oh, no. I mean, yes. I mean, the question, what is your parentage, is possibly a loaded question based on the fact that she has already clocked that he doesn't speak like Maria or Mariah, as
right.
who is a serving wench, and therefore will have a serving wench's accent.
Or for that matter, kind of carry herself in the same way as you expect a servant, right?
Yeah. I mean, body language is also something that comes with your class conditioning,
right?
Yeah, if you're working class, you have a body language which is subservient.
All right, it kind of gives you away, without you having to say a word,
Yeah.
So to go back on body language then, because because we know that Viola is just dressing up as a boy to kind of survive. Like, would you say that Olivia kind of picks up on those subtle feminine ways that Viola moves? Because even when she's wearing men's clothes, even when she tries her best to kind of pattern her movements, off the way that Orsino and other men carry themselves, there's still a bit of that femininity that kind of bleeds through.
Femininity also, but also posture. If you're from the working class, you'll have a subservient posture,
right?
Usually a slight stoop. If you're from I think it becomes clear later that that Sebastian and Viola are from upper middle class.
Right.
So they would have that.
They kind of push their chests out a little bit more, as opposed to working class people. They're kind of like you said, they're kind of hunched over. Their shoulders are kind of drooping a little bit more.
Yeah.
And also to mention as well. Most of the lower classes, they kind of been conditioned to kind of like look a little bit cast their eyes downward a little bit, whereas
Yeah.
people of that class, they're more assertive and looking, directly at their peers.
Yeah. I mean, I think you do find this in American society with immigration, with immigrants,
Yeah.
or recent immigrants. Yeah. Although, I mean, when I look at footage from America, yeah, I mean, apart from the fact that the dreadful obesity, the appalling posture from most Americans.
Well, I mean, most of us do work sedentary jobs. So, if you're sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, and you kind of have to lean forward a little bit, that kind of, because I've had the same problem too. I've had to, do exercises to kind of stretch myself out, because I do hunch over all the time because I'm bent over a computer.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily have anything to do with class. It's just, if you're working that kind of job, you are going to find yourself in a different posture than, say, someone who's like an athlete, who's going to be, built differently and carry themselves differently.
Yeah. Or a dancer. Yeah.
Right. Someone who's more physically active, so to speak.
Yeah. Anyway, so that whole exchange has is so full of richness into the social norms of Elizabethan England.
Now, you mentioned this earlier. Like, I mean, is the fact that the class system is sort of what some people would see as antiquated, or like a sin that just needs to be kept away. Like, I mean, if the class system was more prevalent in the way that Shakespeare's plays are performed, do you think it would make it far more authentic or far more entertaining?
Are you asking me?
Right, because a lot of Shakespeare's productions would kind of not touch that today.
No, I mean, and a lot of Shakespeare academics, experts, don't take this into account. I mean, obviously, if you have a scene in which a gardener meets a king, then yeah, obviously, I mean, there's but I'm just trying to think of
because I mean what we just read here, I mean you would think that this is where the class system kind of shows itself, the class prejudices and the demarcations of where your station is in life, and how you speak and how you kind of carry yourself would kind of betray or enforce who you are as a person, and how others view you.
Absolutely. I mean, it totally reinforces who you are as a person, and nobody questions that. You are born into one of those 5 layers, and you expect to marry somebody from the same strata. Your children will be of the same strata. They will marry somebody from the same strata, and their children will be, and nobody even questions it, in the same way as you have humans, angels, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are it's only in the 1950s and 60s really that they started to be questioned.
Well, I thought they would have questioned it earlier with the rise of the revolution in Russia. The whole rise of the proletariat against the imperial regime.
Okay. Yes. I mean, there was a socialist.
Well, that would have been the catalyst, I should say.
Yeah,
that kind of culminates.
a socialist movement that started in the late 19th century, I suppose, to a great extent, but they were very much minimalized. Any sort of socialist. I mean, if you wanted to join a union, I mean, it was, yeah. There's a whole sequence of episodes of Downton Abbey, which my late partner used to watch avidly, and one of the one of the daughters, Lady, I can't remember which one, falls in love with the Irish chauffeur.
I remember that. And they caused a huge scandal. Yeah,
and runs off with him. I mean,
well, not to mention he's a Catholic, so that's another thing as well.
Add that to the mix, and you've got the total. You've got the full panoply of horror.
Right, for someone, for someone of that class, but that does lead me to another point, because when we see a lot of modern Shakespeare productions, I mean, obviously they try to make it as authentic as possible. So they speak with the Elizabethan accent, they wear the Elizabethan clothes, they try to set it within the time period in which it's set, but it feels like they're missing something, and it sounds like in your case they're missing the attitudes, because they've got everything right, except they're missing the social norms and attitudes that would kind of give it its authenticity.
Yeah, I mean, take the Hamlet and the Gravedigger scene. Yeah, I mean, the Gravedigger, you can't get much lower down the social scale than a gravedigger.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the prince having a conversation is already something. And that the prince even deigns to talk to the gravedigger is huge. Something huge. In and of itself. Yeah.
It's so in other words, it sort of would have been like, in the 1960s, having a black guy and a white guy working together, and not being at each other's throats, but kind of being partners in work or whatever, right?
Well, that depends on where, but yes, I mean, if you're talking Alabama,
yeah,
or
I would reference the infamous scene in Star Trek where Captain Kirk kisses Lieutenant Uhura. I remember that. I remember reading somewhere that caused a huge scandal. Like the execs at NBC were just appalled that a white man would kiss a black woman.
Right.
So I would imagine the shock that that they saw in the 1960s will probably sort of be similar to what Elizabethan audiences saw when they saw that scene that you just described, with Hamlet talking to the gravedigger, or something equivalent, I should say.
Not necessarily, because the gravedigger maintains his deference. I mean, they certainly don't kiss,
right?
Because kissing, I mean, a white man kissing a black woman implies an egalitarian relationship.
True.
Yeah. Whereas in the gravedigger scene, the gravedigger maintains the deference to the prince.
Right.
At no point does he pretend that he's in any way, shape, or form equal to. So no, it's not shocking. I mean, people talk to their servants, lords and the aristocracy will talk to their servants.
Right. Right.
Sometimes directly, not through the butler.
Right, but I mean, like, they're not just saying, so they're not just going downstairs and, slumming it with the servants and saying, "Oh, so how was that? What'd you guys think of that match? Wasn't that crazy?"
Yeah. I mean,
Not to that degree. Yeah.
I mean, for example, again, going back to Downton Abbey, which was, I thought, very well researched, in fact. The servants would have to be upstairs to make the beds, to lay the fires, to clean the fires, and so on. And now that would depend on the humanity of the lord or the family,
Right.
And whether they would just simply ignore them, or they would say, "Good morning, good morning, Jean. Good morning, sir." But it would be, "Good morning, sir."
Right, deference. There's an air of deference in that
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. And she would be on her knees cleaning out the fire. So, there's the
right. So in the exchange between Olivia and Viola, I mean, would you say like there's we're seeing Viola, even though she's kind of dressed up as not as a servant, but as someone who's still subservient to the Duke, kind of giving it to Olivia and kind of almost in a way kind of speaking to her as if there's like a familiarity to them in terms of social status.
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, that a page would talk back to a landowner, landed gently, with this sort of eloquence, because eloquence implies a certain education.
Right.
And so if you've got education, you're not from the working class. And so that a page would talk back to, well, she's not really an aristocrat. I don't think she's Lady Olivia. I mean, she's just Olivia. But she's certainly in the same status as Duke Orsino.
Right. Otherwise, Duke Orsino wouldn't really pursue her the way that he does.
Yeah. I mean, he wouldn't. His family wouldn't let him.
Right. Because then that would render the whole plot line moot at that point. If that were the case.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even with Romeo and Juliet, I mean, their families are warring with each other, but they're of the same strata.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do want to move forward here because, like I said, we could talk about this one scene like for forever and ever. It's just like you said, it's just pregnant with so much meaning and themes. But what I find so funny is that when we go into the next act and the next scene, we have this exchange between Viola and Malvolio regarding the ring. Which when I read it, I was just laughing. I'm like, oh, she's being very cheeky, isn't she? Like, she's got her on the hook. She's trying to reel her in at this point.
Actually, it's not the next scene. The next scene is Antonio and Sebastian.
Right. Or the next, I guess, the next act and then scene 2.
Yes. Were you not even now with the Countess? Oh, she is a Countess.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes. And Malvolio, who of course is lower middle class, he's under that line.
I guess
he's sergeant major. He's sergeant major. He's not.
He's a functionary. Yeah, he's not. Yeah. Olivia. Yeah, I mean, otherwise Olivia would say, "I like you, but only as a friend." Like he's in the friend zone, to use modern parlance, if you want to go that way.
Yeah. And this is a line that I've always found very interesting, because Malvolio says, "She returns this ring to you, sir. You might have saved me the pains to have taken it away yourself, blah, 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 blah." She adds, moreover, blah, blah, blah. And Viola says, "She took the ring of me, I'll none of it." So she enters into Malvolio's lie, because it is a lie, even though Malvolio doesn't know it's a lie. She enters into Malvolio's story. And she doesn't say, "What the fuck are you talking about? I never left her a ring."
Right. She plays along with it. Okay.
She plays along with what Malvolio just said.
Right, because she says, "I left no ring with her. What means this lady?"
But that's after Malvolio has gone.
Right.
And then she starts to clock. It's a lovely speech, this. In fact, I do it in my Shakespeare Unbound play, which I don't know if you. I don't know if you've watched.
I've watched a few. I really did enjoy it. I saw one video where you had a beard. So
No, the play Shakespeare Unbound.
Oh no! I was talking about the channel. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say, is this one of your favorite speeches then? Out of all the play?
Okay. Because also it's a wonderful acting challenge.
How so?
Because I mean, talk about the eternal triangle. She has already fallen for Orsino, but can't declare that she has fallen for Orsino because she's dressed as a boy.
Right.
Orsino loves Olivia, and now Viola is coming to the understanding that Olivia has fallen for her. Shit.
Yep, it's one messed up triangle.
With hugely underlying homosexual nuances.
And would you say that's where I if not the comedy, one of the comedies of this play comes in, is the fact that there's like the sort of latent homosexual desire on the part of Orsino, who audiences see that, they kind of pick up on, and they think, "Oh, this is really, really funny."
Yeah.
I mean, because it wasn't the norm back then, so.
Oh yes, it was much more common. Homosexuality was much more.
Okay.
I mean, as long as you didn't talk about it.
Right, the don't ask, don't tell rule. Gotcha.
Yeah. and I, poor monster, fond as much on him, and she mistaken seems to dote on me. What will become of this, as I am a man? My state is desperate for my master's love, as I am woman, now alas the day. What thriftless sighs shall poor Olivia breathe? O time, thou must untangle this, not I. It is too hard a knot for me to untie. We've all gotten ourselves into those sort of situations where
Yeah.
O time, thou must untangle this, not I. It is too hard a knot for me to untie.
Yeah, let's see how this plays out.
Yeah.
What I really like is the fact that Viola's basically saying, well, either way, like both of these parties lose because Asm's dressed as a boy. If Orsino wants to do anything, I mean, obviously he can't because I'm a he thinks I'm a boy, but then Olivia can't really do anything because I'm really a girl. So either way, they're both up shit creek without a paddle, really.
Right. Yeah. And there's one line which uses a word. It's in line 690.
I was thinking about this when I read it.
How will this fadge? What a word. Now, I mean, if you look up fadge in any dictionary, you won't find it.
Right. Well, not Urban Dictionary anyway, but
yeah. It exists twice in Shakespeare, and I think the other is Two Gentlemen. I am not absolutely convinced of that, but I think it's Two Gentlemen. If this fadge not, we'll have a banquet.
Now, what exactly is fadge? Because I know we talked about it before, but I guess just have a refresher here.
Well, look at the context.
How will this work?
Yeah, how will this work out? What are the consequences going to be? What is the ultimate? Yeah. What is the ultimate? What are the consequences? How will this fadge?
Yeah, will this blow up in my face?
Yeah. I love that word. I think I try to campaign to bring it back into the English language. Yeah.
Well, it's a shame that he's only used it twice because a word like that you would think would get used quite a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I couldn't see it used in the tragedies, but the comedies, I thought, this should be in Merry Wives of Windsor, or Falstaff should be using this, in Henry IV Part 1.
Yeah. There is. I've looked at various scholarly tomes on it. Some think it is a Warwickshire dialect word.
Mm-hmm. Something specific to Warwickshire, right? It wouldn't be used anywhere else in England.
Yeah. And he was on a roll when he was writing, and it just came off his pen like within the context of this and the other use, it's perfectly clear what it means. I mean,
But I mean, it's such a lovely speech that she says, because it pretty much summarizes the entire play for you right there.
Well, this part, yes. I mean, and then there's the other story of Toby Belch and the trick they play on Malvolio.
Right, where they make him think that Olivia's in love with him.
Yeah. One of the reasons, well, again, this has been proposed by certain academics. Malvolio kind of represents the Puritans, and they were always trying to make fun of Puritans.
Yeah, because there's isn't there one part of the play where they even describe Malvolio as a Puritan?
Not sure of the quote exactly, but
the way he behaves is very much puritanical.
Yes, yeah. Dost thou not think we shall have cakes and ale? And again, as I say, I've seen various productions of Twelfth Night. One where Malvolio was just, poor bastard, was just trying to keep order.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she has, Olivia has given him the job of keeping her house in order, and given Toby Belch and his riotous nature, that's extremely difficult.
Because Sir Toby is her uncle, so he kind of feels like he's got free reign around the house, just by virtue of the fact that he's her uncle. And then you've got poor Malvolio here, who's trying his best to maintain order, as you say, but at the same time, you kind of get the feeling that Olivia doesn't really care what he does. It's like it's kind of like an impossible task where Malvolio is supposed to maintain order, but she's letting Toby do whatever he wants. So it's like, well, how can the two orders really coexist? Because obviously, if you're trying to maintain order, then Sir Toby has to fall in line and not carouse like he's doing right now.
Yeah, but then can she discipline her uncle?
I mean, especially given the fact that she lost her brother and she's mourning him, it's like, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, and also there's the sexist level of the man of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a woman, and therefore not the man of the house.
Right. So Sir Toby is basically saying, I really don't have to listen to you. I love you, but you don't wear the pants here.
Yeah.
Which then brings up another point, because do you see Malvolio as sort of attempting to assert that role of the man of the house, and Toby and Belch and the others kind of pick up on what Malvolio is trying to do, and they kind of mess with his head to say, oh yeah, you could be the man of the house. Olivia's totally into you. You just got to do this, and this, and she'll totally open up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He also has ambition.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Oh,
yeah.
But given the class system, they force him into a situation of total self-delusion. There is no way she would ever consider him as a spouse.
But so on that point, I mean, you would think Malvolio, as arrogant as he is, you would think he would be wise enough to know, that's totally not going to happen. She's way out of my league, right? But I mean, he falls for it hook, line, and sinker. It's like, It's kind of like, putting $1 on a fish line and watching someone chase it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we believe what we want to believe.
Doesn't help. There's a note too. So,
I mean, no. Not to get too political, but you have 70 million people in the USA who are doing just that.
True. Yeah.
And who voted accordingly.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, no. Yeah. I mean, anyway, I mean, we don't need to talk about that, but
to go back to, but I want to go back to Malvolio because you mentioned earlier he's a social climber. Would you because in the world or in the setting of Twelfth Night, everybody knows their place. I mean, would you say, or would you perceive Malvolio as the interloper who is trying to disrupt what to them is the natural order of everybody staying in their lane?
Right.
Olivia's over here, Toby's here, blah blah blah.
I don't know if we can find any of the scenes where.
Because I mean, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the material that I looked at, they've all pretty much said, not Toby, Malvolio, is a social climber. He's trying to, he's kind of like the new man, or the nouveau riche, as to use an anachronistic term. He's trying to make a name for himself, but all the others kind of see him as this guy who's just disrupting, what should be a social harmony. And so they kind of, play the stroke to kind of, remind him, hey, it's not your place to be the count here. It's your place to be the steward, and that's all you are, and that's all you'll ever be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if we go to Act 2, Scene 3.
Act 2, Scene 3. Okay, I'm there.
Around line 800.
Okay.
Malvolio. Sir Toby, I must be round with you. My lady bade me tell you that though she harbours you as her kinsman, she's nothing of lied to your desires. If you can separate yourself and your misdemeanors, you are welcome to the house. If not, and it would please you to take leave of her, she is very willing to bid you farewell. That's he's Malvolio is telling Toby Belch to fuck off, but he's hiding it behind or he's
enjoying this, like he's
but he's also defending himself behind
Olivia. He's using her as like as a shield.
Yeah.
And so Toby's being very sarcastic about this too. He's like, farewell to your heart, since I must needs be gone. It's like, okay. So it's just basically him giving the finger or the two fingers to Malvolio as he says this. Is like, yeah, sure, whatever. But I do want to jump back to the love triangle that we have with Orsino, Viola, and Olivia, because when people think of Twelfth Night, that's usually the main storyline that everybody thinks of, right? Because you mentioned this earlier, but we get to meet Sebastian, who was presumably drowned in the shipwreck, but who has survived, and he makes his way into town,
dressed exactly as Viola when she took on the role of Cesario,
right? Which just adds more to the mix,
which is never really explained.
I mean, hey, I mean, you always want to bring some extra clothing with you,
Yeah.
But that would seem to suggest too that they probably must be of a similar size as well, because clothing at that time, it's not like you could buy off the rack like you do today. I mean,
Yeah.
they got to make everything by hand. So presumably,
Yeah.
if Viola's wearing Sebastian's clothes, it's like, no, we're wearing an exact fit. No adjustments needed.
Yes. I mean, those are the sort of questions that, yeah, you don't really ask in terms of the performance.
But it's fun to think about, nevertheless.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but yeah, we meet Sebastian, and what I find so funny is when Olivia runs into him and, and she thinks he's so sorry.
Yes. If we can find that scene,
Because this is after Viola gets into a bit of a kerfuffle in the streets, I think, with Sir Andrew. Because Sir Andrew himself is a suitor, and everybody's just saying, yeah, you two should totally fight. I think it would totally work out pretty well. And it ends up, the short end of it, Sir Andrew gets arrested and taken off, and Viola's like, well, I don't know what the heck's going on here.
Festival.
I think it might be Act 3, isn't it?
Well, there's another scene with.
Oh wait, that's Sebastian and Antonio. Never mind.
No, there's another scene with Viola and Olivia alone.
Oh, right. Totally past it. That's scene 1 in the garden.
Sounds right.
Okay, yeah.
Act 3, scene 1, yes.
Okay.
You have Festi and Viola, and then Festi exits, and then we have a bit of Belch and Aguchik. And
I guess starting as most excellent accomplished lady, the heavens rain odors on you. That youth's a rare courtier. Rain odors well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah, you see, I mean, even though both Aguchik and Belch are sirs, they're obviously impressed by how well educated this boy is.
Is it because of the fact that they think he's a boy, he's really young, and he's kind of, as someone would say, he's learned beyond his years, or learned beyond his years?
Yeah. Odors, pregnant, vouchsafed. I'll get them all three already. Yeah.
So they're looking at Cesario like he's some sort of child prodigy, like kind of like one of those 12-year-olds who get a doctor's degree from Stanford.
Yeah. And then again, we come back to the whole class thing. Give me your hand, sir. My duty, madam, and most humble service. What is your name? Cesario is your servant's name, fair princess. My servant, sir. 'Twas never merry world since lowly feigning was called compliment. Do you understand what that means?
I mean, so at the surface level, I'm reading it as if to say, you don't really work for me. You work for Orsino. Remember?
Yeah, there's much more to it than that.
Okay. Enlighten me, please.
You are treating me as a much higher class. And
Now,
so
who's the you in this case?
Viola, Olivia is saying to Viola,
okay, gotcha.
You are treating me as somebody of a very much higher class than you are. But everything about you tells me that we are from the same strata.
Okay.
Your current position is your servant to the Count Orsino youth. Is kind of that lowly feigning. 'Twas never merry world since lowly feigning was called compliment. You are pretending to be of a lower class than me and therefore trying to compliment me. But in fact, I know you're not.
So, in other words, you're saying don't bullshit me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
She's calling her out, basically.
Yeah.
Because if she hadn't before, she's doing it now. Okay.
Yeah. Your servant to the Count Orsino youth. Yeah, okay, she's playing his game. And he yours for him, I think not on him for his thoughts, but they were blanks rather than filled with me. Madam, I come to whet your gentle thoughts on his behalf. Oh, by your leave, I pray you never speak I bade you never speak again of him. I had rather hear you solicit that than I'd rather hear you to solicit that than music from the spheres. Dear lady, give me leave, I beseech you. I descend after the last enchantment. You did hear a ring in chase of you, so did I abuse myself, my servant, and I fear you. Under your hard construction must I sit to force that on you in a shameful cunning, which you knew, none of yours. What might you think? Have you not set mine honour at the stake and baited it with all the unmuzzled thoughts that tyrannous heart can think? To one of your receiving enough is shown, a cypress, not a bosom, hideth in my heart. So let me hear you speak.
So basic. I said earlier, but she's just basically telling her, just tell me what you think. And you mentioned this earlier in the last exchange. She's this is someone who's pretty much jaded. She's heard all of. I mean, in other words, she's kind of like that lady who's heard all of the pickup lines. Did it hurt? Oh, did what hurt when you fell from heaven? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So kind of goes back to her just saying, well, I really want to know what you think. I don't really care for Orsino. I thought I made that point very clear earlier, but no, you just keep pretending. I think in her mind, she's thinking, why do you keep pretending to say all these words for Orsino when it's really you who's saying all of this? Like, is there do you feel the same way about me as I maybe feel about you?
I think she's laid herself bare here, Olivia. Yeah, she's.
If you read it, it sounds pretty harsh. It's like, look, I'm just getting tired of all of this. Like, enough is shown. A cypress on a bosom hides my heart. It's like, just say what you want to say. Don't beat around the bush, or beat around the cypress, as it were.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go back to the beginning of that speech when she says, "Look, I sent that fucking ring, and now I know that you know that this was all a falsehood." Because I know that you never left a ring, so I sent my servant, I sent Malvolio to give you that ring, because it was a secret message to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that you would know when you got that ring what was inside that secret message. And so I did abuse myself, my servant, and I fear me, you. Now, under your hard construction, must I sit to force that on you in shameful cunning? There's a typo error there, because now under your construction must I sit to force that on you in a shameful cunning. Yes, they've put that both in my version here. They put that both on one line, but it actually should be two lines.
Okay.
Which you knew none of yours. What might you think? Have you not set mine honor at the stake, and baited it with all the unmuzzled thoughts that tyrannous heart can think? To one of your receiving enough is shown. A cypress, not a bosom, hideth my heart. So,
I mean, that line that Viola says next is pretty moving too. I pity you.
yeah. Because yeah, I mean, she does. Because, but not for the reason that perhaps Olivia thinks.
Right.
I pity you because you've kind of fallen for me, and sorry, lady, that ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, I'm not what I seem.
Yeah.
I just love that because when she said it, it's like that. I mean, draw the curtain right there. Like, I pity you, because we in the audience or the reader know what's going on here, and depending on how you view it, whether it's tragically or comically, it's like, well, this isn't going to end well for you because you think you want me, but if you really knew, you would be taken to the hills right now.
Or would you?
That's true. I mean, Orsino's just sitting in his house, just thinking, like, I wonder what Cesario looks like with his shirt off. But
and Olivia's wondering. I wonder what Cesario looks like with his doublet and hose off.
True.
Wow.
But that's the thing, though, because I think that's what makes this place so, so ridiculous, but yet so fabulously put together, because of the fact that it's you just feel for these people all around, because Orsino, because I mean, let's face it, Orsino's dealing with the case of unrequited love. I mean, we both know in the end he's never going to get Olivia, right? And we can feel for Olivia, because she just wants someone who's genuine. She doesn't want the prepackaged lines that every guy seems to memorize and toss out whenever they see Pretty Lady. And we can sympathize with Viola, because how many times are we put in positions where we just want to tell someone, look, I think you're a great person. I know you'll make someone happy, but it's just not me. So you can empathize and sympathize with these characters all around, you know?
Yes, and also that you've that this situation has all has occurred through my deceit,
Right.
through dishonesty on my part.
But to be fair, these were consequences that she would not have been able to foresee, you know?
No.
Well, I hope not. I hope she didn't put on that. I hope she didn't put on that jacket thing to herself. Now that Duke, the Duke of Illyria, how can I screw with him? I know.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's an interpretation that one could do with that, but that Viola is the most despicable, manipulative person out. But I think you'd be twisting the text.
I was gonna say that's a huge stretch right there. Like, you have to do all sorts of mental gym. You might even have to change the text a little bit in order to make that wash.
Yeah.
But I just think it's even funnier when Sebastian shows up and then Olivia's like, "Oh, it's you again." Like, I just can't hold back anymore.
And drags him into the bedroom.
Wait, she doesn't drag him. I thought she dragged him to the church first. I thought. Okay. I might have misread that because
I'm not sure if I remember, but I mean, there's a wonderful speech that Sebastian has. Is like, what kind of country is this? You come off the boat, you're all washed up, and then this incredibly beautiful rich lady drags you into bed.
Oh yeah, it's Act 4, Scene 3. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the air, this is the glorious sun, this pearl she gave me, I do feel it and see it. Though 'tis wonder that enwraps me thus, yet 'tis not madness. He's probably just thinking to himself, like, this shipwreck was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm getting sex all over the place. Like, I don't even have to try. So you can imagine.
And then of course there's the fact that his sister pimped for him.
They're probably just thinking to themselves, we should do this more often. Because same scene. So Olivia comes in with the priest and it says, "Blame not this haste of mine. If you mean well, now go with me and with this holy man into the chantry by. There before him and underneath that consecrated roof."
Hang on. Where are you?
I'm on Act 4, Scene 3. So this is in Olivia's garden when Sebastian is just basically just, remarking what kind of place Illyria is.
Yeah. But hasn't she actually in a previous scene dragged him off to bed?
You might have. Oh, yeah, Scene 1, I think. Yeah, because let's see. Yeah, because this is when Sebastian's about to get pounced on, then Olivia, arrives in the nick of time, and she says, "Hold, Toby, on thy life, I charge thee, hold. Madam, will it ever be thus, ungracious wretch, fit for the mountains and the barbarous caves, where manners ne'er were preached, out of my sight. Be not offended, dear Cesario, Rudesby, be gone." And then we have this whole exchange where basically she's, flinging herself on him, and he's just like, "Whoa, what the heck's going on here?" I've only just washed up on the shores, earlier this morning. Let's see.
Yes, I mean, go with me to my house, and here thou there, how many fruitless pranks this ruffian hath botched up, that thou thereby do not deny, that thou were thereby my smile at this. Thou shalt not choose but go, do not deny. Beshrew his soul for me, he started one poor heart of mine. is in thee.
And what relish is in this? How runs the stream? Or I mad, or else this is a dream? But fancy still my sense in leath steep. If it be thus to dream, still let me sleep.
They
So
come.
I mean,
without be ruled by me.
madam, I will. Lady, you don't need to say another word. I'm betting every guy who's watching this is thinking to themselves, "Damn, where is this Illyrian work? And how can I get this action?" It's kind of it kind of reminds me of this movie, The Ladies' Man. It was an SNL movie that came out in the 90s, and the character Leon Phelps talks about how he spent time in in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, or as he calls it, freaky deaky sex world, where basically everywhere he turned there were just women throwing themselves at him. And it kind of reminds me of that when I read that scene. It's like he's probably thinking to himself, man, this is like a really, really nice country. Apparently women are just dragging you off to their bed chamber. I mean, you don't even have to do anything. And then by the end of the act, it's
and then he comes back out, staggering, probably barely able to walk.
I mean, he went on a roller coaster ride, Colin. He was on the roller coaster of love.
Given that Olivia probably hasn't had sex for a number of years.
Yeah, her dry spell, as it were.
Her dry spell suddenly became very wet. Sorry, that's a bit,
pun intended.
That's a bit vulgar, but
but I mean, it perfectly summarizes what's going on here. It's like she, like for the past 3 acts, she's been keeping it bottled up like this entire time.
Yeah,
it's all been a mental, head games. It's a game of wits, and now it's like,
and she's been trying desperately to get Cesario into bed, basically.
Right, using every trick in the book, the ring and all that stuff.
Yeah. And she's been getting nowhere. Yeah, and Cesario is sticking to his, from her point of view, Cesario is sticking to his integrity concerning his boss.
All right. Right, which Olivia would say is misplaced loyalty. Really, it's like
and totally fruitless, because she's never going to crack.
Mm-hmm. Well, not with Orsino anyway. I mean, she cracked, but not with the guy.
Not with what Cesario is trying to do. Cesario is being paid for a job.
Right. Exactly.
And he's not getting very far as far as she's concerned, because and then suddenly Cesario turns up in this brawl.
You mean Sebastian?
No, as far as she's concerned, it's still Cesario.
Oh, okay, gotcha. But we know it's actually Sebastian. Okay.
Yeah, we know it's Sebastian, but she doesn't.
Right.
And all the femininity of Cesario seems to have disappeared.
Right.
And he's now suddenly, and Cesario is now an extremely accomplished swordsman, showing all sorts of masculine butch qualities.
Yeah.
And she just wets her knickers.
I mean, went from John Waters to John Wayne, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and she's been saying things. I mean, in the scenes before, she's been saying things like, you know, come to me, but don't talk about your boss. Come to me and talk about you. And Cesario has been saying, I'll talk about my boss. I won't talk about me. And then suddenly this Cesario shows up in a totally different
it's almost like there's another side of Cesario that Olivia thought she would never see, you know.
Yeah.
And then she sees it and she's like, whoa, who's this guy? Hello, Beefcake.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I was in love with you, but whoa.
I was wondering if you really were a man, and then I saw you beat the shit out of another guy, and I'm like, okay, doubts are gone.
So come into my house. And we can make the two-back beast.
Yep. And then, you know, culminates in the final act where all is revealed.
Yeah.
Now I will say this, there is a tender moment where Viola kind of confronts Sebastian. It's like, you know, I had a brother named Sebastian also, and we were raised by this guy here. And they're like, yeah, me too. And then they come to realize, holy shit, like, I thought you were dead. I mean, for anybody who suffered loss and thought you would never see your family again, that scene is very touching. You know, throughout all the madcaps, sexual romps, and comedies and pranks, I thought that was a really, really nice tender move right there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But another thing too is that we barely see Orsino, you know, throughout the play, because we only see him at the beginning, and he kind of pops up here and there. So when we see him at the end, for me anyway, I was just thinking, you know, if Olivia didn't fall for you, I wouldn't be surprised, mate. Like, you did this to yourself.
He's a bit naff.
Yeah. I mean,
well, you see, he's not in love with her. He's in love with being in love.
He's in love with the idea of being in love. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Olivia just happens to be a convenient object for him to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like those gym rats, you know, people who just like spend 8 hours, you know, at the gym, not because they want to get healthy, but because they just want to feel the burn, you know. But I just find it so hilarious how you know, a part of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like Orsino kind of just takes everything in stride, right? He doesn't seem too bothered by the fact that, you know, Olivia doesn't really seem to bite. But then when he sees Sebastian, he's like, you know, he feels betrayed, not because Olivia fell for, you know, Cesario, but the fact that I thought we were bros. I thought you had my back here. Like, what are you doing stabbing me in the back like that? So I don't know. I don't think he's really upset that Olivia doesn't like him so much as that Olivia fell for someone else in whom he placed his trust, and also might want to, you know, diddle a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I thought. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it right now. Where was this line? I marked it. I guess I imagine I marked it. But it's that denouement that we see at the end, where everything kind of like wraps itself into a nice little bow, as it were. That face of his. Oh wait, no, he's talking about Antonio. Never mind. I'm trying to find that one with Sebastian. Because I thought it was a pretty funny exchange too.
With Viola and Sebastian. No, with Viola and Antonio.
Yeah, Sebastian, Violent Sebastian.
Oh, that doesn't come until the very, very end, surely.
Yeah. Get him to bed and let his hurt be looked to.
Because
Yeah. So Sebastian, I'm sorry, madam, I've hurt your kinsman. But had it been the brother of my blood, I must have done so no less with wit and safety. And so he's still in the dark about what the heck's going on here. All he knows is he got, he had the best afternoon of his life. He had some afternoon delight, as the song goes. And everybody's just coming at him like, hey, you're a jerk, Cesario. And he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
hang on, where are you?
Oh no, I'm just flipping through. I thought I marked something here. I don't know.
Well, there's
I'm just waiting for you to like say something to take the onus off of me.
hang on, where am I?
Because I'm on Act 5.
Act 5, Scene 1.
Yeah,
There's a shitload of stuff goes down.
that's what I'm saying. There's just so much flying at you,
Yeah. Because
there's also that thing where Antonio got on the Duke's bad side at one point, so they're trying to hash that out. But yeah, I was mainly focused on Viola, coming clean at the end. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah. I was just looking at that whole exchange where Olivia comes up and says, Cesario, you do not keep your promise with me. And she thinks that Cesario and this is where it gets really limit homosexual, because line 2330 or 2325, where goes Cesario? After him I love, more than I love these eyes, more than my life, more by all the mores than e'er I shall love wife. If I do feign, you witnesses above punish my life for tainting of my love. And then, of course, Olivia, thinking that Viola is Cesario, whom she has just bedded and wed, is completely ahead. I mean, her head has been blown, her mind's been blown here. Hast thou forgot thyself is so long? Call forth the Holy Father. And then Orsino says, come away. Whither, my lord? Cesario, husband, stay. Husband? Aye, husband, can he that deny? Her husband, sirrah? No, my lord, not I. Alas, this is the baseness of thy fear that makes thee strangle thy property. Fear not, Cesario, I take thy fortunes up, be thou not, be that thou knowest thou art, and then thou art as great as thou fearest. O welcome, Father, I charge you by thy reverence, here to unfold, though lately we intended to keep in darkness, what occasion now reveals before me. 'Tis ripe what thou dost know hath newly passed between this youth and me. Bad grammar. Should be between this youth and I. Bad Shakespeare.
You sure it wasn't the people editing the folio who did this?
Could be. A contract of eternal bond of love, confirmed by mutual joinder of your hands, attested by the holy close of lips, strengthened by the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, well, I did marry these two. What are you on about?
And then Orsino, of course, he loses his rag.
But I loved you, Cesario. We were going to go on holiday together.
Well, not only that. O thou dissembling cub, what wilt thou be when time hath sowed a grizzle on thy case? I mean, Orsino thinks that Cesario has used him to woo Olivia for himself.
Oh, it's like a bait and switch kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
And he's fucking furious.
Are we sure? Are we sure he also isn't furious at the fact that he can't have Cesario now?
I don't think so. I think it's much more basic than that. Is that it's a betrayal,
right?
Yeah.
It's that whole bros versus hoes kind of mentality, right?
Yeah. I mean, I sent you to woo her on my behalf, and you ended up marrying her. I mean,
it's almost like the reverse of what you would see in Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yeah. I mean, I employ somebody to do the marketing for my show, and they end up doing the marketing but keeping the money.
Yep, exactly.
But grabbing the copyright and happened to a friend of mine. And then, of course, there's the whole Aguchique and who think Cesario has beaten the shit out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then in comes Sebastian.
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody's going cross-eyed.
Yeah, their heads must be on a swivel at this point. They're like
Orsino's line there: one face, one voice, one habit, two persons, a natural perspective that is and is not. And Antonio's there, but of course, Viola, as Cesario has said, has denied knowing Antonio. And then
I love what he says here. You're betrothed both to a maid and man. I thought that was a really, really funny line that he said.
Which is that?
So when Sebastian talks to Olivia, says, so comes it, lady, you have been mistook, but nature to her bias drew in that. You would have been contracted to a maid, nor are you therein by my life deceived. You were both betrothed both to a maid and a man. I just thought that was a funny line. It's like, so you're in love with the both of us. You're in love with both me and my sister. Is that
it? Brings a whole new idea to the a threesome.
I mean, never mind that. It adds a whole new meaning to the to the idea of role playing. Really,
Yeah.
it's like Orsino just says, "Well, Viola, why don't you dress up as Cesario again?" It just takes things to a whole new level. But I mean, the story. But I mean, here, I mean, Viola says the captain that did bring me first on shore hath my maid's garments. He upon some action is now in durance at Malvolio's suit, a gentleman and follower of my ladies. So yeah, I mean, she is pretty much saying, yeah, I pretty much had to toss my clothes when I went overboard, but they still have it. It hasn't gone anywhere. So you can imagine how everything kind of plays out when everybody finally realizes they got what they want. Olivia's got Cesario, i.e. Sebastian, and Orsino now knowing that the person he really fancies is a girl, he can
He can act on it.
Yeah, and not feel guilty. all within the confines of marriage.
And not feel queer.
Right. And then I guess for whatever reason, Malvolio he's just sullen for some reason. He got locked away for acting like an asshole. I'm still confused about that. Like, how exactly did Malvolio end up in the situation where he did? Because I know he was tricked into basically acting like a complete ass. So how is it that Olivia finally just decides, yeah, I can't deal with you at this point?
Line 2545, or that speech, Lady, madam, you have done me wrong, notorious wrong. Have I, Malvolio? No. Lady, you have. Pray you peruse this letter. You must not now deny it is your hand. Write from it, if you can, in hand or phrase, or say it is not your seal nor your invention. You can say none of this. Well, grant it then, and tell me, in the modesty of honor, why you have given me such clear lights of favor, bade me come smiling and cross-gartered to you, to put on yellow stockings and to frown upon Toby and the lighter people, and acting this in an obedient hope, why you have suffered me to be imprisoned, kept in a dark house, visited by the priests, and made the most notorious geck and gull that e'er invention played upon. Tell me why. And then Olivia says, look, this is not my writing. It's very similar, but it's Maria. And so Maria, and so then it all comes out that the whole thing was cooked up by Maria, Fabian, Festi, Toby Belch, and Eggy Cheek.
And Malvolio doesn't take too kindly to this. I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you. And I'm imagining him stomping off like a child as he says this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, wow, what a play. Like I can definitely see why this is one of Shakespeare's most famous comedies. And you also see its legacy too in a lot of TV shows and movies today. But yeah, I mean, do you have any final thoughts on Twelfth Night? Anything you wish to add?
Well, like you, I think it's a masterpiece of theatrical manipulation, and the way the stories intertwine, particularly when you think about the way that he must have been writing. Yeah, because I mean, you're writing by hand. You're not writing on a typewriter, and you're certainly not writing on a computer. and mixing all those stories is well, he was fucking good at what he did, wasn't he?
I mean, amen. There's nothing else to be added to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the next play we're going to take a look at is Richard II, and that is going to. I mean, I can tell you right off the bat that's going to take quite a lot of work to get through because there's just so much to process. Especially when we talk about the fact that when Richard gets deposed, when Henry of Bolingbroke becomes Henry IV, that that pretty much lays this plants the seeds for what we'll see later on when we get to the Henry VI and Richard III plays. Not to mention too, at some point I would love to do a review of the different film performances, because I watched the because after our last discussion I watched the Sir Ian McKellen version of Richard II, and I remember watching the Ben Whishaw portrayal as part of the Hollow Crown series, and what I really love is the fact that Ian McKellen plays Richard as as more of like a demigod kind of person. He is God on earth.
Is this from the 1968?
I think so, because I know Derek Jacobi also did a performance as well. That was part of the BBC Shakespeare series as well. He plays more melancholic than Ian McKellen.
Okay, because in 1968 there was the English Shakespeare Company, I think they were called, and they did on alternate nights Edward II, Richard II, Edward II, Richard II, with McKellen as both, and it was at the Piccadilly Theatre. And for I think about £0.50, which is 2 shillings and sixpence, which is 12.5p in modern terms, although this was 1968. So, but you could stand at the back. You didn't have to pay for a seat. So it was incredibly cheap. I mean, a seat was probably £5, and we're talking 12.5 pence.
Right.
And I went several times, and I watched those.